Hi everyone and welcome to Creative Cakes by Sharon. Creating a beautiful cake is not just in the decoration, it all begins with the correct preparation of your cake. Just like building a wall, the foundations of your cake need to be set up properly in order to give you the best possible chance of ending up with a perfect end product. So today I'm going to show you part 1 of my 2-part series in how to cover a cake in ganache, and then in part 2 you can watch how I perfectly cover a cake in fondant. Don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and let's get started. To make life easier, it's best to invest a few dollars in getting the right equipment, and a turntable, an offset spatula and a cake scraper are important tools to have. I've also got here a little rubber mat, some cake setup boards and my makeshift spirit level on my phone. I also have my cakes here. I'm using my 10-inch moist chocolate cake and my 8-inch white chocolate and raspberry mud cake, as well as my fillings and my ganache. So the first thing I need to do before filling the cakes is have all my cakes stacked up so that I can check if they're all nice and even or whether I need to trim them a little. If I use the cake scraper and have it flat on my turntable against the cake, I can easily see if any of the cakes are sticking out too much. If the cakes jut out at the bottom or the top, pushing the side of my scraper out on an angle, then I know I need to do some trimming. But as you can see, they all look quite even today. I'm also going to pop my spirit level on top of my cakes so that I can see if the levels are all nice and even before I start. This is going to save a lot of grief at the end. So on top of my turntable I've placed my rubber mat, my cake setup board and my first level of cake. So now I can get started and fill my first cake. Today I'm using a white chocolate and raspberry ganache filling. It's a nice thick consistency which will prevent any bulging at the sides when the cakes are all stacked. When you use any type of fruit filling mixed in with a ganache, it will tend to liquefy the ganache, so you always have to make sure it's nice and thick. So the cakes are filled and stacked, and I can start covering them with the white chocolate ganache now. I've prepared this ganache and let it cool fully to room temperature. It's not too runny and it's not so cold that it's unmanageable. So I'll start by spreading some ganache over the top of the cake, and I like to keep spinning my turntable to keep an even consistency and thickness. And then I'll slowly work my way down the sides of the cake. Always make sure to firmly press the ganache into the gaps between the layers of the cakes so that you can squeeze out any air pockets. Even though this is not a crumbly cake, it's nice and moist and dense, it still is essentially a crumb coat that I'm doing, or a base coat. Once the cake is fully covered, I'm now going to go back and apply another thicker layer of the ganache right around the sides of the cake and the top of the cake. I'm not worrying about trying to get a nice smooth finish right now because I'll come to that step in a moment. I just want to make sure that the ganache layer is nice and thick, and probably so that I can't see through to the bottom of my cake. Now, using the cake scraper and making sure it's sitting perfectly flat on the turntable and pressed up against the cake on a slight angle, I'm going to slowly spin the turntable around, maintaining my pressure and angle on the cake scraper, removing off the excess ganache. You can see just how much ganache I've scraped off, and this all needs to be scraped off into my bowl before I repeat the process. So again, I'm just going to pop my cake scraper nice and flat on the turntable, held at an angle to my cake, and gently spin my turntable around. You can see that even after the first scrape of the cake, it's already looking nice and smooth and flat, but there still needs to be a lot more ganache to be removed. So you can continue this process as many times as you like until you feel that your sides are nice and straight. So I've scraped the cake a few times now, and I can actually see a few little areas where the ganache is missing. So I'm just going to pop some more ganache over the top of these little pockets and then scrape the cake over again. Now for the top of the cake, I'm going to hold the cake scraper right across the top of the cake and gently glide it over the top of the ganache. Once I've scraped off the excess ganache, I'm going to give the turntable a little spin and do the same process. It's probably going to take around 3 or 4 rotations of the cake to make sure I've gone right around the top. Again, if you see any little gaps in the ganache, you can just fill a little bit more and continue scraping. Now to make sure my corners are perfectly crisp and sharp, I'm just going to hot knife the top of the cake. So I've dipped my spatula in some boiling water and wiped off the excess moisture. I'm just going to glide the spatula from the outer edge of the cake in. Just do this as much as you need to until the edge is nice and sharp, always maintaining a very light pressure. Then I'm going to quickly clean my turntable. And then for the final test, I'm going to check if my cake is nice and level. So I'm just going to pop a little piece of paper over the top of my ganache and place my spirit level on top. And as you can see, the little bubble is perfectly dead center. So I know the cake has been stacked and filled and ganached perfectly level. Now here I've got my larger 10-inch cake, and you can see that it's going to be the exact same process even though it's a slightly larger cake. So the first thing I'm going to do is place my first level of cake onto the board. I've already checked if these cakes are straight and level as we did with the first white chocolate cake, and this time I'm filling my cakes with some whipped chocolate ganache. It's basically a variation of my dark chocolate ganache. All I've done is use my hand mixer to beat it up a little bit. It aerates the ganache, makes it light in texture and colour. So once again I'm going to fill and stack my cake and then cover it with the darker chocolate ganache. Guys, all of these cakes are super easy to work with. Not only do they taste delicious, but if you're a beginner, they're almost foolproof to work with. So I've left a link to all the recipes down below in the description box. Guys, this is a terrific video for you to add to your favourites. Rather than having to search for it each time you're ready to make a cake, you can click on your favourites and it will be there ready for you to follow each time. If you ever have any questions or you're doing this and you have some problems, don't forget you can always drop me a line in the comment section below and I can help you out wherever I can. And finally, once again, it didn't matter whether this was an 8-inch cake or a 10-inch cake or whatever size it was, following this same process has left me with a perfectly smooth and level ganached cake. For me, there's nothing more satisfying than seeing a beautiful cake like this, ready and waiting to be covered and decorated. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to fill, stack and ganache a round cake. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to let me know by giving it a like. As I mentioned before, I love to get your feedback, so drop me a line in the comment section below or connect with me on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram and Twitter. If you're not already a subscriber, make sure you click on the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you'll see all my creative cakes as I release them. Make sure to check out part 2 in this series on how to perfectly cover a cake in fondant. I hope you tune in next time, and as always, thanks for watching.